Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Multiverse, for partnering with Bright Blue on this event. And welcome, Secretary of State, Gillian, who's going to talk about a new vision for post-16 education. We want to spread the message further than just this room, so please do tweet if you are on hashtag #BrightBlue. So the format is I'm going to ask some questions for the first half of this session, and then the second half we're going to open it up to questions from you. And we've got Gillian until just before 12:30. So your education background is quite unique. You did an apprenticeship for an education secretary instead of just going to university. So I'm interested really because not only did you do an apprenticeship, but you also did a degree. And, you know, sometimes the debate is it should be, you know, instead of more people going to university, we want more people doing apprenticeships. It's one or the other. Do you see it like that? Or actually, would it be good if more people did both workplace training and going to university?
I think they're very complementary. I mean, you say it's unique. It wasn't a unique experience in Knowsley, where I grew up. In fact, that was the golden ticket if you got an apprenticeship. So you know, the comprehensive school I went to, which was you know, not rated then, but it would have probably been rated inadequate. 92% of the kids left without the 4 or 5 GCSEs that you need to get onto the next stage of education. So the first thing that's really important that I think I bring to this job is that real understanding in my DNA that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And that's why we've been so focused on school standards, really trying to get the school standards up, because that's a long time we spend at school. We want to make the most of every single year. But then looking at what comes next. For me, an apprenticeship, you know, that was the thing that changed my life. It was my golden ticket, as I say. It didn't start off it wasn't predefined as we have them defined now. It was an apprenticeship, and they basically said, we will take you as far as you can go. So you did ONC, HNC degree, HND was an option as well, and they would just take you as far as you can go. And there's something about that I think is really powerful about learning from all the people you're working with, because you do learn so much from people you work with, and then having that sort of more formal education. So I went 1 day a week to college, then 1 day a week to university. It was actually a polytechnic that became a university whilst I was there, so it was Liverpool Poly, because they were the only people who did sort of flexible 1 day a week degrees then. But I do think it is a fantastic way to learn. And you know, I've been passionate about apprenticeships ever since. I've been passionate about, in my 30-year business career, about training apprentices, about making sure that we had those opportunities. There's something about going into the workplace that is like going through a sliding door. But to do that at the same time as having the formal education, I think is really a very, very strong way to really learn and then to be able to apply that in the workplace.
So thinking about your business career and now your political career, what was the period where you felt that you were learning the most? You know, what sort of 6-month period? Gosh, I really learned a lot there. And who supported you during that?
Well, anybody who knows a place called Kirby, which is the car factory that I went into, and it was quite it was General Motors sub-assembly factory. I will never learn as much in life as I learned in that car factory, because there was a couple of thousand people work there. It's quite a deprived area. But this was, you know, obviously for many of the people there, this was their lifeline as well in terms of their job. So I learned everything. I learned even about politics there. I wasn't particularly political before, but there was a lot of things happening in the 80s in car manufacturing. We were introducing just in time. There was a lot of changes in processes, how important it is to get those to make sure you're profitable, to make sure you can grow business, to make sure you can keep all of the jobs. I learned a lot about unions, because the unions were opposing a lot of the changes at the time. I learned a lot about people, because you know you've got a huge diverse range of people. So I would say that's probably the time when I've learned most. And plus I was starting, so I didn't know very much. So obviously the learning curve is massive. But there was a second opportunity I get, and this is another reason why I'm quite passionate about lifelong learning, because I went back to study age 42. I went to London Business School, and it's the first time I'd gone back and studied full time. I went for a year. I did something called a Sloan Fellowship, so you can do that at MIT, Stanford, or Sloan. It's a very, it's a brilliant business Master of Science qualification, and I did that full time. And that's because lots of things have changed: digital, data, social media. It shifted lots of business models. We'll get that again with AI and quantum, but just that new way of framing, a new way of thinking. So I went back to just, discover all about that. And that was another sort of very steep learning curve, but probably another time when I learned a lot.
So that Sloan Fellowship, and, excuse me if this is too personal, but, a lot of people, when they feel like, oh, I might retrain, I might try a different career, just too expensive to give up that job and go full time. How were you able to do that?
Well, actually, I got the offer of being sponsored, but I was working in Madrid at the time. I'd worked in Madrid for 8 years. I thought I'd go for 2 or 3 years, learn the language, learn a bit about a new industry, come back. But I loved the job. But I didn't want to commit to stay, because usually if your employer sponsors you, same with my degree apprenticeship, I had to commit to stay to pay back for a number of years. So I wasn't willing to do that. But I had been working by that time for many, many years. So I'd kind of saved up, and I decided to invest in myself. Actually, it was the quickest return on investment I've ever had. I mean, within the next job, I had managed to get back the money that I'd invested. So I'd recommend it.
So you talked about when you first started that being probably the most intense time for what you were learning. Particularly since the pandemic, fewer people are working in the office full time. More people are working from home. Do you worry slightly about young people not engaging, not learning from senior people, not having that learning experience that you had in the workplace because they're working from home too much?
I do worry about that, although I think it is shifting a little bit back to an equilibrium. And I worry about that because I know a lot of young people who, are just starting out in the workplace, and that's what they say. You can go into an office like this, and there's virtually nobody there, and you do learn a lot from colleagues. You almost learn by osmosis as well. Just the whole environment, even seeing meetings, seeing how things are done. I think you do learn a lot from other people. And I think one of the things that, a lot of people say as well in terms of productivity, creativity, that sort of group dynamic, you do kind of get to the answer, you do get to solving problems quite often better with a group, particularly if you've got a good diverse group coming from different angles, different experience. It really does, make it better. I think for those people starting in their career, yes. And lots of people, if you speak to most young people, they'll say, that's what I want. I want to be going into the office. I want the sort of going out after work stuff as well. Most of us did all of that. So it's a big part of the journey. And again, it's a big part of starting work. So I think we have to get the balance right there.
You talked about the importance of diversity in a workspace, having different perspectives and views. Do you have that around the cabinet table? Do you feel that politics is as diverse as what you were experiencing in business?
Yes, I do actually. I mean, in terms of the cabinet we've got at the moment, it is very diverse. People have come from very different backgrounds, lots of people from different parts of the country. It does. Different work backgrounds. Some people have been, the whole political route, and some people have, like myself, have done many years in business. Some started their own business. Some have worked for multinationals, as I did. So there is that mix around the cabinet table.
70% from private school backgrounds, still very high.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who went to private school who've gone into politics via Oxford University. I always say to them, quite often that if you're speaking about something, particularly about political ideology, I'm not particularly politically ideological. People will sort of talk about their ideology, and I always say I didn't form my views in the student union. I formed them working with unions in a car factory. It's completely different. But I'm not alone. There are a number of us who've had different backgrounds, and there is lots of people who go to different schools. Not many people went to a Knowsley comprehensive school that are in politics or in government. So I like to think I bring that diversity.
So when people talk about apprenticeships, the kind of gold standard is Germany. We should be following the German example. But I've seen some evidence which suggests the returns from apprenticeships tend to peter out the older you get. And actually, university, you have much more of a kind of generalist education. It gives you a kind of stronger foundation for different routes that you might go on. Do you think that's right? There's a danger that, if you just do an apprenticeship, it might be quite narrowing.
No, I don't think that. Two stats I think it's worthwhile people having. We've completely reformed our apprenticeship system since 2012. So bringing in the levy, working with over 5,000 businesses, setting up IFATE so we get the right standards. We now have apprenticeships in almost 70% of the occupations in our country. This is, I think, world leading. I haven't checked everywhere, but I think it's probably world leading. Germany, for example, has 33% of their occupations accessible via an apprenticeship. Why have we got this system? Because we created something completely new. We've got apprenticeships to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a nurse, to be an accountant, to be a nuclear engineer, a space engineer, pretty much everything. If financial analyst in Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, all of the companies, all of the professions that you would want to access, you can access now via more than one route, including an apprenticeship. The other stat I think is quite interesting is a level 4 apprenticeship. So you can access things like cybersecurity analysts and other many data analysts via level 4, which is kind of the old HNC kind of level. They out-earn graduates by about £5,000 5 years after they both finish. So I think the whole way that we can access and young people can access those professions has really been revolutionized by what we've done since 2012. And the other it's not unique, but it's not available everywhere, feature of our system is that it's available at all ages. So half of our apprentices are older people, either retraining or quite often getting the first shot at getting onto a decent career ladder. So I always think about those 92% who left my nosy comprehensive school without the 4 or 5 GCSEs or O-levels as it was when I was there, and how many of them went on to really fulfill their potential, and how many of them now can get that second shot. Obviously, we've done a lot to make sure that, more of our schools are good or outstanding now. So, that should happen less times. But if it does, you get a second shot. And I think that's a really powerful part of the system that we've created in the last 10, 11 years.
Interesting what you're saying about how widespread now apprenticeships are in different professions in the UK, and some real progress on that. One thing about the university system is that it's very much a national, in fact, an international market.
Yes.
You can grow up anywhere, get maintenance support to go to a university in a different part of the country. And you get some competitive pressures as a result of that between universities. Are we there with apprenticeships? Have we got a truly national market there where, someone from Knowsley, for example, could go and do an apprenticeship in a different part of the country? Do people have that support to access apprenticeships throughout the country? And is that something we should be aiming for in apprenticeships?
So if you look at the regional breakdown of apprenticeships and apprenticeship starts, they are all over the country and they are there in quite growing numbers. But I would never say that it's as accessible yet because, of course, there's much more of a range of types of jobs, different levels, etc. So I still think you need to really do more to build up both the provision for higher level apprenticeships. So we're working with many more universities now to offer not only full-time degrees, but degrees as part of a degree apprenticeship, working with businesses to put those together. But also making sure that we have more and more employers, particularly, what's always the challenge with apprenticeships is small and medium-sized employees, and making the system simple enough. So we've still got more to do to get, we do have lots of SMEs, but to get more SMEs, because of course they offer lots of jobs all over the country. But I think with big organisations, take for example the NHS, the NHS long-term, the workforce plan, 25% of those as a minimum will be apprenticeships. So they'll be pretty much all over the country. So there is a lot of growth in apprenticeships, but of course we want to see them grow further so that people get the opportunities all over the country. And that's a really big, important part about place and levelling up.
Just to sort of pitch a Bright Blue idea, but one thing we have been talking about for enabling apprentices to go to different places in the country is perhaps they have access to the maintenance loan system that people go to university just to support them with their living costs. A question now about universities. There are some in your party who say too many people go to university, and it's a dated model, it's very expensive, people are graduating, loads of debt. Too many people go, they would be better doing an apprenticeship. Do you agree that too many people go to university?
I think what we object to, I think, was having an arbitrary target. This 50% must go to university. It's that which doesn't sit right. It's, of course, we want people to be able to go to university. Our university sector is world class. We have 4 out of the top 10 universities in the world. We're a huge destination for international students as well because of the quality of our education. Research in our universities is solving some of the biggest problems. We saw that in the vaccine, but much more beyond that in some of the real growth industries of the world. So I'm really proud of our university sector. It really does add a lot, and it's one of our biggest exports actually in terms of all of our exports for that international and that education. But setting an arbitrary target like 50% is just something that doesn't sit well with us. So of course we want to have those opportunities, but we want the opportunities to be not just in one single model. Everybody stays on schools, everybody does full-time education until they're 21, 22, and then they go into the workplace. What we're trying to do is change how people think about accessing their careers and upskilling and retraining throughout their careers. I know, because I've been through now 3 big tech shifts in my working life, that AI and quantum, as well as some of the climate change technologies that come to support the net zero, will have a massive disruptive impact on many of the way we do things today. So what we need to do is to change our mindsets. So the reason I put all of the apprenticeships on UCAS last year was when people are looking, they can see that actually, if they wanted to be a doctor or a teacher or an accountant, there's 2 ways to get there. And they could start actually with a level 4, 5 or 6 apprenticeship, 6 being degree. And then later on, because we're introducing the lifelong loan, the lifelong learning entitlement, they can basically say, you know what, I'll start doing a level 4. I'll out-earn probably the graduate route. I will do that. And then when I'm in the workplace, I'll look at what I can do to upskill or to get the next level or to specialize. And then I can go back and I can do that full time at university. And I can basically take this along my journey with me, optimizing my career. That's the kind of choice, not, 50% will go to university, which also implies 50% won't. And that was always the question as well. What do you do about the other 50%, who basically is me? So I'm very interested in every young person getting the opportunity to get on the career ladder, get the earn and learn route if that's what suits them, and be able also to take that lifelong learning entitlement all the way through their life and access that student loan so they can go back. And you mentioned about the Sloan Fellowship, and it's quite expensive. You can go back and do some of these, masters later on.
Do we know how much somebody would be able to get from their lifelong loan entitlement? Because obviously, if they use a lot of that up for their undergraduate degree, how much are they going to have?
Well, it's 4 years. It's 4 years. So that's why we're trying to say, think very carefully. Don't use it all at once if you're not sure, particularly if you're not sure what you want to do or you're not sure about the careers available. It's just providing those other options. Of course, there's other reasons people want to go and do the full-time university option, and that's perfectly valid. We all know what they are, and they're very well understood. But it's just making sure that you can have this sort of career-led options as well, if that's what you're interested in, and you can see other ways into the workplace. I do speak to a lot of young people who've done a degree who will go back and do a level 3, 4 or 5 apprenticeship to get the skills that are then attractive to the workplace. And many of them say, I kind of wish I'd have known this beforehand, which is where we got the idea to actually put them on UCAS when I was the apprenticeship and skills minister. That's where we kind of got that idea from.
So when we've done research before, the big thing that people say, why I can't go as a mature student back to university is the credit constraint. And for a long time, people haven't been able to, they've done a BA in physics, to go back to university, do a BA in nursing, because it's an equivalent or lower qualification. They can't get the student loan support. Is the lifelong loan entitlement going to change that? Are people going to be able to reskill at the same level as what they did 10 years ago and get loan support?
For somebody wanting to solve that problem, the way I would recommend they solve it is by doing a nursing degree apprenticeship, because it is the best way. If you need to earn and learn, and many people do, I needed to earn and learn many times in my life. If you do, then an apprenticeship's a really great way to do that. That's why we need to have all of these options which are there around the country, many different occupations, so people can look and can see, yes, there are several different ways that I can access that.
So Multiverse have done some research, and it suggests nearly 500,000 workers over 50 are at risk of being forced to retire early due to not having the modern skills employers are currently looking for. So often in these debates, we focus very much on younger people. But do you think the package of support that you're offering will be something that older people over the age of 50 might be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I became a politician, which is my sort of next career, age 49. So I'm exactly bang on that demographic. And I think, I mean, we've got a lot to offer in our 50s and our 60s, and retirement age obviously is way into the 60s now. So that is absolutely vital. And we've got many schemes actually, even in education, going into teaching as a second career, going into FE teaching as a second career, either full-time or part-time. So I think there is a big market of people who may want to, either because they've done the same career. When I decided to go into politics, I'd done nearly 30 years in business. I didn't, because I'd started so young, I'd managed to have quite a full career, when I was still in my 40s. So, and there'll be many people who, get to the point and they think, do I want to go around that same loop again? Or do I want to actually, we're only here for a short time. I want to get a brand new experience. Do I want to contribute something else? Do I want to do something more purposeful? Or do I want to do something I always dreamed of doing but didn't get the shot? Those are the second opportunities that I want to open up for everybody, either via the lifelong learning entitlement or via the apprenticeship system, which is why I'm so passionate about keeping the apprenticeship system for all ages. I think it will prove to be a massive strength, a massive differentiator for our country, because when you're looking at investing, and the businesses look at investing countries, they massively look at skills and the access to skills, and I think this will be a game changer. And those people in that period will have, in that age group, will have so much to offer if they have the ability to pivot into careers that perhaps might suit them as well for their last 15, 20 years.
So you talked about some technological changes that you've seen during your career. I mean, last year, really what came onto the scene in a big way was generative AI.
Yes.
As a technology is rapidly developing. So I'm thinking about what the implications are for how we prepare young people and people in the workforce at the moment for that. How does our education and skills system need to use generative AI more, but also prepare people for the changes that it's going to create to our economy?
Yeah, and it's multifaceted. I mean, obviously, you've got those people who are actually students, making sure that AI actually doesn't disrupt too much in terms of making sure that they are still learning and they're still getting the knowledge and they're not relying on AI. And actually, one of the benefits of our quite heavily exam-based system is, still you have to sit an exam, and therefore, if you rely too much on AI to generate work, it's not going to help you in the long run. But I think for the education sector, there's a lot that AI can do to help. I think the way I liked it's been described is for every kid in the country and every student in the country to have the best tutor always sat next to them, and every teacher in the country to have the best teaching assistant always by their side. And I think that is the aim in education for AI. And we're doing things at the moment. You know, we've got AI hackathons. We've obviously got frameworks that we're working on, and we're really experimenting at the moment with the National Institute for Computer Science faculty and others. So I think that's really an interesting part. But then you've got the skills themselves in terms of AI. And I think they will shift a lot of the skills. We used to say how many millions of computer programmers we'd need by 2030. And I think that's probably going to change. There'll probably be fewer computer programmers if AI gets to where it needs to in terms of generating code as well. But there'll be different skills that will be required as a result of AI and as a result of how you utilize that AI, how you apply AI, how you critically view the benefits of AI or otherwise. So I think there will be all of those skills that will be, as there are with every new technology, there will come new skills that will be available. And of course, we'll make sure that that's the other thing about the lifelong learning entitlement, which is it will also, one of the things we're looking at, which we're being quite cautious to make sure we get the quality, because it has to be quality, but that there will be shorter modules that can be used to stack and make up, another qualification if required, or just shorter courses, which you can go back and get that, in the 3-4 month period.
Yeah, I think that's a very welcome thing. On a final question from me before I open it up, it's just on the Advanced British Standard, which is the sort of one of the big things which this government is trying to change, and it will take many years. But I'm particularly excited about this idea of broadening out the curriculum post-16. Feels that England is quite unique in narrowing the subjects that students do. So just interested in your kind of vision for the Advanced British Standard. How long do you think it's going to take before we start to see those benefits? Because a lot of teachers say this isn't really a priority right now. The priority is that we haven't got enough teachers and we're struggling to retain them. So why are you bringing this in as well? So just your overall vision and timetable for that.
Well, I think to answer the question why, if we go back to 2005, when we were in opposition, we spent 2005 to 2000, not me, because I wasn't here, but 2005 to 2010, thinking about how we were going to get our educational standards up, how we were going to make sure we had much better schools. And that was a big part of the reforms from 2010 through to now. And we now have from 68% schools good or outstanding, we're 89%. So the vast majority of kids around the country are going to a good or outstanding school. But then you've got to look at what next. So of course we always need to look at retention and recruitment of teachers. And we know post-pandemic there's been, a lot of, pretty much every area has got skills shortages globally. It's a global phenomena. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be lifting our sights to say, what does the next 10-year, 15-year reform look like? What do we need? Our young people who are going to be competing all over the world, it's an increasingly global workplace. How are they going to be the best? We focus on, we're very proud of the international league tables. We've got the kids being fourth in the world at reading. How do we make sure that they're there right at the top, being able to not only solve some of the big challenges we have in the world, climate change, net zero, and others, but also to be able to get the best jobs and also attract the best businesses here. So all of that is what do we need to do next? And there's two things that I think we believe, and when we look at what other countries are doing, which we do a lot. The first is that there's many other countries, 16 to 18-year-olds, just study for longer. They study for about a third longer. So we need to increase the amount of time that our 16 to 18-year-olds are studying to make sure that we're optimizing that period of their education. And the second is the breadth of subjects. So you're right, we narrow down. It used to be probably to 4 A levels, but then it's sort of more and more sort of gone into 3. So English and maths, obviously, keeping those going up to 18 is what the Prime Minister's, very keen on making sure. And it doesn't mean everybody's doing, algebra to 18. This will take many different forms, but just making sure that you have those skills, but also broadening out the options before you then narrow down. So it'll be more time and broader options. And we almost have, because we've got a very, very well developed academic route, which, as you said, is the A level, and then lots of people going on to university more than ever. That's developed quite quickly in the last few years. You end up with this kind of artificial choice at various points between, academic or technical, when actually most jobs are technical when you get to them. And actually, this is kind of almost like a false divide in some ways, this academic technical. So we're trying to also make that more of a combined offer, so that you can look to how you can do that, which is not easy. But we took on very bold reforms, and they weren't particularly popular at the beginning with the sector, but pretty much everyone now would say they were absolutely the right things. And you can see the results in the league tables. We're 11th in the world for maths. We were 28th, I think, in 2010. So these are things that really, really matter, the fundamentals, and it's that vision. What's the next big vision? And that's the Advanced British Standard is part of that, and it will take the best of what we've got.
Great. Let's open it up to questions from the floor. There's a microphone coming around, so please wait for that to come to you. So what we'll do is we'll go to this chap here first, and I'm going to take 3 actually. So we'll go here first, and then we will go to this lady here. And then we will go to the gentleman right at the back. So this gentleman here with the laptop.
Thanks. That's 3 questions each. Is it?
Sorry, yeah. And sorry, if you could say who you are.
Yeah, it's Ben Quinn from the Guardian. It's a question on maths, and I say this as a father of a daughter with dyscalculia, so I'm not a massive fan of Rishi Sunak's plans for maths up to 18, but forcing students to do maths for longer means finding teachers qualified to take those children and young people along when there's actually a shortage of teachers, and none of the government's policies at the moment seems to be succeeding in recruiting that level of staff. Does that necessarily mean children and young people will be taught by teachers who are less qualified? And just, if I may, just a political one, the YouGov poll today shows you and other ministers are in risk of losing your seat. Do you agree with Lord Frost's prescription that the answer to that is to turn right by abandoning net zero pledges, taking a harder line on immigration, and a couple of other things? And lastly, I'm being greedy, but should the I'll leave.
Sorry, if we could be pithy, just so we give everybody else a go, that'd be great. So questions should be pithy, no embedded clauses. Let's start with this lady there.
Hi, thank you. 5 years ago, you and I spoke very briefly at an APPG about women in work, and we talked about returnships. Since then, it's all gone very quiet. Can you say very briefly where returnships fit in wider and post-16 learning?
And could you just say who you are?
Yeah, sorry, Elizabeth Mystery, freelance. And also, just going on to teacher retention, research by the whistleblowing charity Protect shows that 76% of education staff who've raised a concern, and whistleblowing is very much in the news at the moment, say they've been ignored or worse still suffered detriment. Would you like to see Ofsted and other educational regulators be prescribed persons under PEDA? Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then this gentleman right at the back who has a microphone.
Thank you. Alex Bowles from Guild HE, and we work with 60 universities and colleges, quite a lot of whom do degree apprenticeships. And I think the biggest challenge that they often come back to us in terms of growing their degree apprenticeship provision is actually the regulatory overlap that there is between a whole series of regulators. We have to report the same students to different regulators in different ways. Is there more that we can do to tackle that?
Gillian.
Thanks very much. It was a bit of a range there. First of all, maths teachers. Obviously, we need to. There are many different areas, but in particular, science, computer science, and maths are pretty difficult to recruit right at the moment, because obviously there's a lot of call for the same skills. One of the things that we're doing, we do have a recruitment and retention strategy. We have increased the starting salary to £30,000. We've also increased the incentives for people going to study those subjects to £6,000 tax-free for the first 5 years. But in addition to that, we're going to broaden the number of routes into the teaching apprenticeship, teaching via teaching apprenticeships. And there's many people who are also in teaching who would maybe doing teaching assistant roles who would also be grateful to be able to do a learn and earn route. So we're going to broaden the pipeline as much as possible to make sure that we can offer. We were talking about what somebody perhaps looking in their second career, maybe in their 50s, what they might be interested in doing, to make sure that it's an attractive profession for people, and also looking at flexibility, job shares, those kind of things, because a lot of people don't want to work full-time then, but we need to look at how we can do that. So that's all part of recruitment and retention strategy that we're working on. In terms of YouGov, there's only one poll that matters, obviously, which is the poll on the day. And I think, we need to stick to the plan. We've had quite a lot of, headwinds, quite a lot of difficult things happen. We've got the country through so far. We need to stick to delivering and stick to the plan is my view. Women in work returnships. I think we did announce actually something on returnships, which was part of the autumn budget. But in particular, if you think they're not working, I mean, obviously women in work, the apprenticeships and making sure that they are, broadly accessible across the country are fantastic routes to get back into. And I've met many, many women since we were both together on the Women in Work APPG, who are now, because it's about half of the apprenticeships are women and about half older women as well, are using those to get into, any different kind of career. But if there's anything more, obviously I was very passionate about making sure that women have opportunities to show their brilliance at all ages and all stages, and I'm very much interested in that. Ofsted, I am concerned by what you say, actually. I'll look into that whistleblowing. I haven't seen that. But I think it is most important, very important, to listen. And one of the things that we have a new Ofsted HMCI who just started actually this month. And one of those first actions is to do the big listen, which is working with the sector, with teachers, with head teachers, to understand, some of the pressures that they're feeling or some of the things that they're concerned about. So I think that would be a good start. But I'm always, probably my business background and mentality, but I'm a continuous improver, always looking at what we can do more and how we can support people more. In terms of the guild and the degree apprenticeships, there's loads of universities now who've really taken degree apprenticeships on board. I was at Exeter opening their new centre for degree partnerships, and it was amazing. They're working with, there's thousands of them on offer, and they're working with many, many businesses. I know that we have obviously the OFS and we have IFATE, because we need to make sure that we have, or Ofsted with the IFATE standards, to make sure that we have the right quality. But again, we're always looking to see how we can make it easier to work with apprenticeships, and we're doing quite a lot of work to streamline processes. But we have to keep the quality. I am absolutely passionate about the quality. And one of the things that happened at the very beginning of the apprenticeship system was there was one supermarket, for example, not long after we brought it in, where suddenly overnight 40% of their employees were suddenly apprentices. Now that we need to stamp out. This has got to be high quality, with proper training, and we've done a lot to make sure that we have that quality, and I wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize that.
Great. Final round of questions, but there's loads of people want to ask questions, so I'm going to ask that you keep it to 1 or 2 sentences, your question. Please be thoughtful towards other people. So we'll start with this lady here in the front row. 1 to 2 sentences. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hi, Eleanor Busby from PA News Agency. I just wanted to ask you, a number of the exam boards are making plans to introduce digital exams, digital GCSEs. I just wondered if the government supports these plans, whether you're worried about any risks they could pose in terms of tech issues or cheating.
Great, thank you. Very pithy. This gentleman here.
Hi, Joe Zamit Lucia. I'm part of a think tank called Radix. I suggest that things have changed since you walked into a car factory at 16. And it seems to me that many businesses have given up their responsibility for skilling and retraining their staff and continuous education, with more and more falling on the back of the government. How sustainable is that? And do you see any possibility that business might change, or will they continue to rely on immigration and poaching from other businesses?
Great. This gentleman here.
Thank you. Oh, hi, Gillian.
Hi, Lenny.
I'm Lenny Rolls. I'm from the University of Sussex. I want to get a question in on the sector, but we're supportive of apprenticeships because of the IoT that we're supporting with Chichester College Group in Surrey and Sussex. I just wondered whether you had any thoughts on the PwC report into the financial stability of the university and higher education sector.
Great, thank you. This lady here.
Gillian, I'm obviously I'm Russian, but Deputy Chair of the Social Mobility Commission. Music to our ears to hear you talk about talent being everywhere and opportunity not. And SMC research showed that the least advantaged children start school around 5 months behind their most advantaged peers and then leave at 18 months behind their most advantaged peers. So it's great that we're doing so well in the PISA rankings, but what is your department and your focus in terms of actually closing that gap when it comes to social mobility?
Great, and then final question, this gentleman here, because he's been, looking at me for a long time.
Long in Lee.
Yeah.
Ben Richards, Kingfisher, so B&Q and Screwfix. You mentioned small businesses and engaging them with apprenticeships. Obviously, I come from a point of view around kind of plumbers and electricians, but I'd be interested in you expanding on your thoughts on how to get more small businesses able to take on apprentices.
Brilliant, thank you. Gillian.
Thanks very much. Okay, first of all, digital exams. I think being very cautious is actually the sort of short answer. What I understand is there's going to be a few very small pilots looking at that. But yes, for all the reasons you say, we will be very cautious about making sure that the many reasons why we'd want to check that digital exams didn't lower the quality in any way. But from what I understand, the award organisations that have been in the press talking about it are talking about doing some small pilots. In terms of skilling and training and being more strategic and businesses being more strategic, I think there has definitely been, when you look at the sort of averages and you look across the world, actually businesses in the UK do invest less in skills and training, even taking into account the apprenticeship levy. That's one of the reasons that we brought in the apprenticeship levy, which was to change that trajectory and to basically give everybody the taste of the power of apprenticeships again. That we'd kind of lost that. Interestingly, I was talking to somebody in the States recently, and they said that they were worried about they'd lost it in sectors, because what was actually happening when I went to do my apprenticeship is they were being led largely by the manufacturing and the construction sector. They were the big leaders in pioneering apprenticeships. And as the manufacturing sectors change, we were in danger of losing some aspects of that. So giving everybody the taste of the power of giving that earn and learn opportunity is what I think the apprenticeship levy's done. So I'm hoping that's going to be a really strong base, because we do have skills challenges. Most businesses have skills challenges. We have a vacancy rate which is, nearly 1 million. So we do need to address this, and we do need to be strategic. And I think that helps us to build on a strategic platform. Lenny, so first of all, IoTs, glad you mentioned IoTs. We have 21 of those. I think 35 universities are involved in them. I went to see one on Friday. They are amazing. They're a collaboration between FE colleges, universities and businesses, a lot of level 4 and level 5 and level 6. And I think they are an amazing new area to both get involved in, universities get involved in level 4 and 5, which opens a new market up to them, but also a new way of accessing level 6 as well for those people who want to do an earn and learn route. In terms of PwC and financial, I mean, obviously, we always look at this. I mean, in terms of the industry, the business, if you look at universities as a business, I mean, that's why we obviously have an international education strategy, because we see it as an export sector. But in real terms, there's £9 billion more in the university sector than there was in 2012, I think that number comes from. So there has been a massive growth in funding. And I think the more that they can offer and work very closely with businesses who are trying to obviously, create differentiation so that they can grow and win in some of these big growth areas, then that is the secret sauce as far as I'm concerned, and why I love the businesses and universities really truly working together to solve those challenges. Social mobility, I think childcare and our childcare offer is going to make a massive difference. So we're introducing, we've announced it already, from 9 months up until when a child starts schools for working parents, there'll be 30 hours childcare support for families during the term time. So that will help a lot, not only with the cost of having a family and the cost of childcare, but also with the development and making sure that we're using some of that time to be able to hopefully ensure that children start school ready to learn as much as possible, as broadly around all of the socio-economic scales, to make sure that kids start ready to learn. And in terms of SMEs, I mean, yeah, Kingfisher is, obviously working with supply chains with larger companies. That's been one thing we've done. So, the 25% transfer of levy, which a lot of large companies have now used to work with their supply chain as well, has been utilised, I think, more strategically by some than by others, but it's relatively new. I think that is something that I'd be looking to expand wherever possible. But also we are conscious and are doing some work right now to make it much easier, the whole system, and to reduce the amount of set steps and lower the barriers, and maybe even increase the incentives for small and medium-sized businesses to start to engage in the apprenticeship system.
Great, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining now this afternoon. I'm sorry I didn't manage to get everybody's questions, but we are having lunch in the room next door. So please ask those questions to me and others there. Bright Blue, at the heart of what we do, is about taking the best opportunities and experiences and making sure that more people from particularly modest backgrounds can access those. So we have a report coming out on Wednesday looking at how we can widen access to business ownership. How do we democratize businesses? So please watch out for a very high-profile report that we've got out later this week. A big thank you to Multiverse for partnering with us again, and then to Gillian, thank you for being so passionate and eloquent about this brief, and good luck for all that you're doing. So a round of applause to Gillian.
Thank you.